Howdy everyone, Runt9 here, and welcome to the most anticipated top 10 we've done thus far, the top 10 games of 2020. There were a lot of games that I had a chance to take a look at last year, some definitely better than others. Overall, I would say 2020 was a fantastic year for gaming, both for me and for just the gaming industry at large. There were a lot of really innovative games that came out, a lot of games that helped us get through what was ultimately a very rough year for the entire world. And, you know, at least for me personally, it also marked the beginning of my streaming hobby, my YouTube hobby. And so I had an opportunity through the Runt9 Looks At series, as well as just trying to find new stuff to play, to check out a very large number of games over the year, at least for myself in particular. I don't think I'd ever bought, 30, 40 plus games in a single year before. So I had narrowed down the initial list to, I believe, 21 games and then kind of cut down from there. And so this top 10 list is not in order of games that I think are best, because that would be a slightly different list. This is just purely my favorite 10 games in order of how much I enjoyed playing them throughout the year. Things that can get factored in are patches, updates, DLC, things like that. A game that came out, did well, and then just kind of faded off, no developer updates and things like that, may not have been as strong as games that were consistently updated throughout the year with new and fresh content that kept me coming back. But for the most part, things are just going to be how much did I enjoy the game. And if you are watching live on stream right now over on twitch.tv/runt9plays, depending upon how things go with viewership and whatnot, we may be giving away some copies of the number one game. And there's also a prediction right now. People seem to think that there is a chance that Monster Train may be my number one game. And so those of you watching live on Twitch can predict if, with your channel points, risk a little bit of your channel points if you think that Monster Train will be the number one or not. So without further ado, why don't we dive in with number 10. I said number 10. I think I have to actually click on this first for it to work. Let's try this again. There we go. Number 10, Temtem. Temtem was a game that kind of came out in early access right at the beginning of the year. It was one of the very first games that I streamed on Twitch. And, as you can see here a little bit further down, I don't necessarily have a ton of hours in the game, only 10.5 hours, 8 of which were streamed on Twitch, and all of that was with Emmy. In fact, I'm pretty sure I did not play any Temtem on my own. Temtem is essentially a Pokemon MMO. It is a monster collection game that has some multiplayer elements to it, and ended up being just a really fantastic start to the game. I do think that they hit early access a little earlier than they needed to, but the game is in continual work, and there is so much potential there. The groundwork of the game is incredibly solid. The gameplay is a lot of fun, and absolutely expect to see it YouTube stream, so on, as time goes by, as more content is added into the game. And it's probably always going to be a little co-op with Emmy, as many of you know, she is a huge Pokemon fan, and Temtem was right up our alley as an opportunity to play something really fun together that had that Pokemon style thing. I'm excited to see where the game goes over time, because again, it has a really, really solid foundation to build off of. But it did just barely squeak onto the list. Why don't we see something that was a little bit stronger as we move into number 9? Number 9 is Crown Trick, a game that came out, I want to say around October of last year. So this one came in basically opposite end of the year from Temtem. And so it still made it onto the list, 17.5 hours played, only 4 hours streamed of it. Crown Trick is kind of a classic-ish roguelike. It has your basic grid-based movement. It's turn-based, but it's fast turn-based in the sense that, everything takes a turn when you move a square. but it adds some unique twists on things. It has some good meta progression. I really like some of the gambling elements. I thought that was very cool. And just the fact that as you defeat bosses, you get the opportunity to have more varied powers, and you can mix two bosses' powers together for interesting combos. It's had some patches this year, but it seems like the developer is really focused on some of the longer term goals for the game. And at least for me, the game got stale a little quickly, but that core gameplay of it was so good that it ended up making the top 10, even though it kind of staled out a little bit for me. And I'm super excited to see where the game goes as time goes by, since, again, it is very new, just hit early access a few months ago. And I think that there is a lot here to build off of. And thus far, I've had a lot of fun with the game and would expect it to be one of those staples in my library for a very long time. And from there, why don't we move on to number 8? Number 8 is Trackmania. For those of you who did have an opportunity to watch me play, those virtually all 8 hours were on stream. Trackmania is one of those games that back in the day I played hours upon hours upon hours of. I think back in the X-Fire days, I probably had about 300-400 hours of some of the older Trackmania games, like Trackmania Nations Forever. It's a Trackmania game. If you don't know what it is, it's an arcade racing game that can get very crazy. It's completely community driven in the sense that the track editor built into the game gives you so much freedom and flexibility to create all sorts of incredible things. And this version of Trackmania came out with some concerns about the monetization model, but the fundamental gameplay is everything that you wanted from a Trackmania game, and then some. The track of the day gave some freshness, a reason to log on every single day and play the game. It still has all of the fun stuff that you can do in track editors. And for me, like, I'm surprised I haven't played more. And I think a big part of it is just that it's not on Steam. So I crack open Steam and say, hey, what do I feel like playing right now? Trackmania is not in my mind because it's over on Uplay. But even though it has less hours played than the 2 games prior on this list, I absolutely do think that I enjoyed Trackmania more. And it is one of those games that I think we probably will see on stream some more going forward. I just don't know that it necessarily fits into my style of streaming, which focuses a little more on analysis, where Trackmania is pretty much the analysis is drive better, forehead, and there's not much to comment on with that. But as we get, more active community, it does open up a lot of ability to talk with chat, and I definitely enjoy that aspect of it. It's a very casual game to just kind of sit back, relax, drive a car fast, and definitely happy to see a new Trackmania game this year, and looking forward to continue seeing what sort of amazing tracks the community will put together as time goes by. Moving into number 7, Gordian Quest. And I think this one may surprise people that it's not higher up on the list. And I had a really hard time figuring out where to play where to put Gordian Quest. I actually think it would have been lower had Realm mode not made it onto the beta server towards the end of last year. I feel like for me, Gordian Quest being a deck building roguelike plus turn-based tactics, it feels like it blends everything that I would want in a game. And for whatever reason, just the basic story-based version of the roguelike feel, the 1 and 2 acts worth of content, it felt like way too long of a roguelike run for me. It carried over multiple playthroughs, multiple streams, and that just didn't quite hit home with me the way that I really wanted the game to. Whereas the underlying gameplay, the deck building, especially once they started releasing these updates for the skill trees and the different ways that you can improve your characters over time, I saw the potential of the game start to get realized. And then they released Realm mode, which basically has your Slay the Spire style randomly generated pathing through different fights and shops and healing and things like that. And that's what took Gordian Quest from this is a game that I really like to this is a game that I really love. And I absolutely cannot say enough about how much I expect to see Gordian Quest pop up more in the future and how good I think the game is. But that should also tell you how strong I think the remaining 6 games are if Gordian Quest, as it is right now, is only number 7 on the list. So why don't we see what was the first game to beat it at number 6? How about One Step from Eden? And this is another one where I feel like people are going to be a little bit surprised that it is not higher on the list. And believe me, I had a hard time putting One Step from Eden this low when, during the time that we were playing it actively on YouTube and stream, I felt like One Step from Eden might legitimately hit my top 10 games of all time. It fell off just a little bit as the more I played it, the more I found the certain play styles that worked better for me. And I felt like every run turned into, there's 90% of cards and spells that I'm not even going to look at. There's certain strategies that I'm going to shoot for. And I also felt like I was hitting a little bit of a skill ceiling myself. That said, only 36 hours played, so there's plenty of room to continue playing. I did also buy the game twice. I got it on Switch as well, and have had a lot of fun playing it on Switch. The joke here is Adrian, who I think hasn't quite made it to the stream, unfortunately. He'll end up watching this later. I had to throw in the little dig that he was probably asleep for all 10 hours that we streamed to this. He's not a huge fan of the game, and so we have a lot of fun back and forth about it. And just in general, you know, it ended up not being a fantastic stream game just because I'm so focused on playing it that I kind of lost the commentary to go with it. But I do think that it was easily the freshest take on the roguelike deck builder genre all year. And there was a big update right at the end of the year that I have yet to try out. And I definitely, based on what Thomas Moonkang, the developer of the game, mentioned, he was a little bit burned out after the initial release, and that's why there weren't necessarily many updates throughout the year. But then he got that itch back, put out that big update, and is looking forward to adding more stuff to the game. And I'm certainly looking forward to seeing what that stuff is. So now, why don't we move into the top half of the list with number 5. Super Mega Baseball 3. This is one that it kind of surprised me that I almost forgot about it. I almost forgot about the fact that, like, yes, this game came out last year, and I played 60 hours worth of it on Steam. 28 hours were actually streamed. And I also, this was another one that I bought on my Switch as well, and I would be playing it while I'm sitting there falling asleep at night. It's a Simcade baseball game, and in my opinion, it's the best baseball game that I've ever played, bar none. And that's out of probably, 10 or 15 different baseball games over the years, including, MVP Baseball, Triple Play back in the day, some of the newer baseball games that have come out over the past few years. It is elegant in its simplicity, and that's something you guys will hear me say a lot. I feel like the game does exactly what it needs to do and no more. And there's been active patches throughout the year, some fairly decent updates, but there's also not a lot that they could add to the game that I think wouldn't take away from what makes it great. The player ratings are simple but impactful, and I just feel like everything about the game is tight and it feels like it belongs. There are things that I can be like, yeah, I wish that it had a little bit more of this. But at the end of the day, I feel like you can just hop in, play a couple games, and enjoy it. And to me, when I went back and was thinking about the list, I'm like, Super Mega Baseball needs to be up there just because the sheer underlying fun factor of it is so high that there was no way it wasn't going to be on the list. And when I started comparing it to other things, I do think that I enjoyed Super Mega Baseball 3 more than I did One Step from Eden, and that surprised even me. But there were still 4 games that I liked more than that, so why don't we move on to number 4. Mortal Glory. Once again, one of the first games that we played on stream back in, I want to say it came out around March or so of last year. It is a turn-based tactics roguelike, and it's one of those games that on the surface you look at it and you kind of scratch your head like, is there really much here? And then you start playing it, and incredibly elegant yet simple and clean is how I described it here, and I would say that is the perfect description of the game. The core mechanics of the game are very simple, very quick to pick up and learn, but some of the more in-depth strategies, especially around how you gear your characters, how you save your gold, things like that, are so much deeper than it looks on the surface. And because it's a tactics-based game, you have virtually perfect information other than what is the enemy going to do. There's a little RNG in the game, and some of that has been fixed over time with the dodge mechanic being nerfed in what I think was a very solid solution. A DLC came out for it at the end of last year. I believe it was called Fresh Blood, that just reinvigorated the game for me. I got a few more hours out of it, and it's definitely one of those games that every so often we're just going to pop open Mortal Glory and play it for a stream. It is absolutely fantastic. Red Beak Games has put out a wonderful, wonderful game, and I honestly was surprised that I only played 23 hours of it. 15 hours streamed makes perfect sense, but I feel like I played more of it, and that number feels low to me. I feel like I should play even more than that. The game is just absolutely wonderful, and I can't say enough good things about it. Mortal Glory absolutely deserved to be on this list, and 100% is overlooked and undervalued. Please check it out if you haven't already. Mortal Glory is absolutely one of the best games of last year. But again, still 3 more to go. Why don't we take a look at what took that 3rd spot? How about Ring of Pain? This is yet another one of the ones that I bought on PC and on Switch. It came out in October of last year. I already put in 23 hours and then some. Again, I bought it on Switch as well, and I know I've probably put in a few hours there as well. Luffy is pogging off in chat because he's the one who told me about the game, and I can't thank him enough for it. It came out at the time that I kind of got into playing Ultra Rapid Fire and League of Legends with everyone, and I still found time to squeeze in some Ring of Pain games late last year. This is one that there was a huge update within the first couple months of release, and that update changed the way you play the game while adding so much more strategic depth. It absolutely, unequivocally is one of the best roguelike deck builders I've ever seen. It has such an incredibly fresh take on things. Not quite as fresh as One Step from Eden, but definitely I would put it number 2 as far as how unique it felt to play it. And as Luffy just mentioned, another big update is incoming. Their Lunar New Year update and a huge roadmap coming up. There's so much to love about the game. The developer is very active, and as I mentioned, their incredible potential. There's so much more they can do with this base formula, and I'm so excited to see where this game goes over time. It's only been around 3 months. I feel like it's already significantly better than it was when I first played it, and it's only going to get better from here. It absolutely will be a staple for many, many, many years to come, I'm sure. Adrian, welcome to the show. You did miss One Step from Eden. It was back at number 6. So you were pretty close with your guess of around number 7. Yeah, it has already been shown off thus far. So we're probably about to figure out whose predictions were right or wrong as for whether or not Monster Train was going to be number 1. Because as most people probably guessed, my number 1 and 2, the only 2 games last year that I put in over 100 hours of, that actually came out last year. I definitely put in over 100 hours of Path of Exile and League of Legends. Why don't we check out what number 2 was? Crusader Kings 3. Sorry about your channel points, Luffy. I'm sure people know what number 1 is at this point. Crusader Kings 3, like, as soon as it was announced, I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt I was going to pour a ton of time into it. I love Paradox Grand Strategy games. I have like 500 plus hours in Europa Universalis 4. I have roughly 100 hours of CK2, and CK3 on release, no DLC is better than CK2 in almost every way. They've been releasing patches that fix a lot of the fundamental issues. They've had some feature updates as well, such as the ruler designer. It's one of those games that I mean, that 170 hours happened like that. Only 40 hours streamed of it honestly seems like a surprise, but it was my second most streamed game of last year, second most hours of last year, and second favorite game of last year. This is absolutely going to be a permanent staple on the show. Every new DLC that comes out, we're definitely going to be playing on stream. You'll see content of it pushed to YouTube. Expect to see much more of this in the future, and it also gets me excited for what Europa Universalis 5 will be like whenever that comes down the pipeline in the future. Already knew it. That was a great stream game, to be honest, considering I paid attention, even though I don't care about that type of game. Yeah, absolutely. I think CK3 had a lot of what I feel like makes a good stream game for us on the channel is there's so much decision making, there's so much to learn and educate that I can do the analysis that I want to do, the commentary I want to do, while also being able to answer questions for those of you who don't know much about this type of game. And that's why I would very much expect to see it return. But we did also kind of play it as like the only game on stream for, I mean, basically the entire first month after it came out. Was fun naming people. Remember that African campaign like the back of my hand. That campaign was fantastic, and that was me first learning, you know, the new mechanics of it. Remember little Daddy that died. Definitely, like, go check out some of the actually, I don't know if we ever highlighted any of that stuff. The VODs are probably yeeted at this point, but definitely expect to see more CK3 on the show in the future. And without further ado, to the surprise of no one, number one, it had to be Monster Train. Like, ever since I started putting the list together, we knew it was going to be Monster Train beyond a shadow of a doubt. The fact that it only has 5 more hours played than Crusader Kings 3 is incredible. But when you think about the average run length is probably 45 minutes, that's 200 runs worth of content through the game. Number 1 game streamed last year, more than double number 2, 65 hours worth on stream. Likely a top 5 game of all time for me. I mean, it's up there with the likes of Call of Duty 2, City of Heroes, these huge nostalgia games, League of Legends, these games that I've poured thousands of hours into. Luffy mentioned it's the game that brought him to the stream. The 65 hours here is not counting the many hours of content that it produced for you guys out there on YouTube as well. Not to mention there was free update after free update after free update all year last year that just took the game another level, another level, another level, and then they announced and started working on their first paid DLC that adds a new character to the game. And I mean, to think about where the game started versus where it is now, it was already going to be number 1 on release last year. And then everything that they added to the game just pushed it that much further over the top. Even though Crusader Kings 3 is only 5 hours behind it in playtime, Monster Train is miles ahead of everything else in 2020 for my personal enjoyment. I absolutely, unequivocally believe that Monster Train will be a permanent fixture on the show. And it's a perfect stream game. I can fit in a run in an hour. There's plenty of analysis and commentary and things to talk about. There's so much deeper strategy than I initially realized. I mean, the hilarious thing is, you know, Adrian on the show here was the one who first recommended it to me. I would have found it anyways, as my favorite streamer, Northern Lion, ended up playing it a lot. But he brought it to me back when it was in beta. And, you know, I really appreciate him bringing it to my attention. I've gotten so much enjoyment out of this game. Absolutely wonderful. And I apologize for the channel points predictors, but you probably should have known Monster Train was going to be number 1. We'll go ahead and do that. Rip your channel points, Luffy. sorry, not sorry. Monster Train, my number one game of 2020. And looks like we don't necessarily have a bunch of new people in chat, so we're not necessarily going to worry about a giveaway, but I'm really happy that I was able to put this list together. Why don't we take a look at the recap? Running back. Did I not put in a final sign? Oh, there we go. I think I had clicked away. So number 10, Temtem. Number 9, Crown Trick. Number 8, Trackmania. 7, Gordian Quest. 6, One Step from Eden. 5, Super Mega Baseball 3. 4, Mortal Glory. 3, Ring of Pain. 2, Crusader Kings 3. And number 1, Monster Train. And again, when I look back at all these games, the hundreds of hours that they provided me over the year, and all the wonderful memories that all these games created for me, both on stream and on YouTube, it's just so many wonderful things to love about 2020. And thus far, I'd say 2021 is already off to a good start. We took a look at a couple games the other day on stream, both Overcrowd and Kyvir Rebirth, that I think are going to start building out what I expect to be another wonderful list for this year. Notable mentions: Nova Drift did not make the list because it technically came out in early access right at the tail end of 2019. It probably would have been number 2 right behind Monster Train. There's a couple other games that were right out of that gap right at the end of 2019. And there were also a lot of games that didn't quite make the list. But overall, I absolutely have to say, wonderful year for games, and CK3 and Monster Train together, 350 hours between them. Can't say enough good things about it, and I can't say enough good things about you guys out there in the community. Thank you so much for the huge amount of support, getting us to Twitch affiliate status over on Twitch, and thank you all for being here during the stream. I can't say enough good things about everything that's happened. I look forward to another great year for everyone here in 2021. We're going to be still going a little bit longer here on Twitch, but for now on YouTube, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, the single best thing you can do to support the channel is clicking the like button. Sends a message to YouTube that says, hey, other people might like this video as well. You can also subscribe if you want to see more videos like this in the future, and most importantly, make sure you go check out the stream live, twitch.tv/rut9plays live 4 days a week, sometimes on Saturdays. And you can check things out over there as well, and discord.rut9plays.com if you want to join the community. But until next time, I'm Rut9, and I'll see you later.